All right, we're live.
Everybody calms down a little bit.
Welcome
Until they forget that we're on there.
to the fellowship where we're going to discuss episode 100.
Yay!
Episode 100 of the Berean Manifesto. Isn't that fantastic?
Fantastic.
We're here. We're at 100. And those aren't really fudged numbers either. Those are real numbers because, like when we did that series at Easter, it was like 65.1, 65.2, 65.3. So that wasn't, we didn't like artificially rank up numbers because of the Easter special devotion we did or whatever.
So did you start the fellowship at week 1, or you started podcasts?
For the first couple weeks, you did podcasts every day.
Yeah, for the first week or two, I did podcasts every day, and then we met for 2 weeks at our second fellowship. They were like, it's too much. It's too much to keep up with. We can't remember what we're supposed to be talking about. Every day's too much. I was like, well,
But did you start doing the podcast at the same time that you started having the fellowship?
I think it started at 4, didn't it?
No, it's around the same time.
Because I thought you'd been doing the fellowship for like a year or so.
Yeah, we've been doing the fellowship since March of 2017.
Weeks. Okay. I was thinking days, or I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, it didn't add up. But now
So this is the 100th episode.
Okay.
All right. So this is part 2. Last week we started talking about God's conditional love. And then this week it was Christ met those conditions. The conditions of God's conditional love. So, anybody have anything they want to say? Looks like Brian's reading it right now.
Yeah, I gave it to him. I got distracted by your religious
No, that's okay. I've prayed. God's going to save me. I'm religious.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That's a pretty funny story.
I had to edit the story just a little bit because we just talked about, you believe one thing and then you'll tell a joke that supports a different theology. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to edit the joke to support what I believe actually happens when you die.
He edited the part where he said, when it was his turn, instead of just saying,
Tell St. Peter, I got a bone to pick with you.
Not St. Peter.
Joke.
Oh, in the joke.
Yes.
Well, in the joke, he's immediately ushered into the presence of Jesus in heaven.
Yeah, I just felt it start blowing too. It's on my head. Yeah.
I'm going to put my old man jacket on.
Yeah.
That's what my wife says.
Sometimes it does.
And so does Noobs. I think you really are my new best friend.
That does it from now on.
Noobs and my wife are both like, that's an old man jacket. That makes you look old.
He is getting up there. He ain't no spring chicken.
My mother says it's a nice jacket. She has an old man jacket.
Okay, so
I also said people getting up there.
full disclosure, okay? When I was a kid, my great-grandfather had this jacket, only it had a different design here, different pattern in the stitching here. And it's actually in my mom's front closet, but like half my size. And I've always admired that jacket. And then when Brian brought this one fellowship, and was like, hey man, you want this jacket? I was like,
Am I Brian?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted that jacket. It looks just like my great-grandfather's jacket that I always wanted, but it's too small for me.
Too big for me. Just your size, man.
And it was just my size.
It looks good on you.
That's why he still wears it. I said it looks
So,
It looks more 1940s cigar than an old man.
To me, it's the color, I think.
so the whole point was, full disclosure, it is an old man's jacket. And I don't care. I like it.
Are you referring to Brian as old?
No, it was my great-grandfather had one. I mean, he was old when he had it.
Oh, he's not old either.
See? We get distracted a lot.
All right, so back to the podcast. Episode 100. Mr. Rogers, reminds you of Mr. Rogers? Well, that's relaxing, right? Isn't that relaxing? Like,
So you read his military history.
Doesn't it look like
we won't talk about that.
that like Daniel Tiger thing?
inside.
Daniel Tiger.
Yeah, that's what they turn it into.
And he takes off his little hoodie. He takes off his shoes.
Yeah, and he like puts his
Yeah, I
foot
didn't
up,
understand
like,
changing everything just because he came inside.
You want to know how I feel about that?
Richard,
Lovely.
I hate that show.
I just had like
My kids.
Okay. So does anybody have anything to say about the podcast?
Sorry, I get to finish listening to the podcast.
You know me, I have issues with metaphors, is that word? Or
Yes, you have problems with metaphors and analogies.
analogies, and so for me to understand the analogy or of the water being a sin, I need it to be a specific sin, and you made it a general sin.
No. It is sin.
That's what I'm saying. You made it.
No.
Just
It is
anything.
the
Anything.
sin that was introduced to the world by Adam is the hurricane.
That's the thing, and so it made my brain.
You didn't create the problem. You didn't create the hurricane. Adam did. But you're still subject to it. I get a lot of people going, well, how dare you say I'm a sinner? I'm not a bad person, da-da-da-da-da. Well, that's the same thing as you saying, well, how dare you say I need to be saved from the hurricane? I didn't create this hurricane. Well, I didn't say you created the hurricane. I said there is a problem and there is a solution.
Or you can drown.
Or I can just let sin sweep you away.
I like the part where you said you can't reach down and splash around in it or try to sink your foot in it.
It's
Because
rushing
that's
by. It's
Yeah, because
rushing.
that's how sin gets you.
Yeah.
You think, oh, it's fine, just this part right here, yeah.
I just
and
played
then-
it a little bit, dipped my toe in.
And then you get swept up by a hurricane.
Yeah.
Well, and you start to think, well, this part's not that bad. This part's okay, so y'all come back later when it gets worse.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're gone.
That's a good analogy. I just, like I said, my
I thought it was a
brain
great
has about it.
analogy. I was like, this actually makes sense. Maybe I will listen to what he's saying. I'm kind of glad I got to read it though, because whenever I listen to anything on the radio, I don't follow normally. So reading this, you can start sending me the emails and I'll read it. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes out as a blog online and an audio at 7 o'clock on
Okay.
Sundays.
Yeah.
So what time is it now?
6:49.
So in 11 minutes, season 2, episode 1 will come out.
Nice.
So why did we make a new season?
Because we did 100, it seems like a good
Good
point to go.
round.
Season,
When we get to 616, you're gonna skip that number?
probably not. I'll probably specifically dedicate the episode to talking about
Yeah.
older transcriptions versus newer transcriptions and how we should be struggling with the text to find, I'll probably deal with that issue.
666 is not what we're actually using. 616. Everybody freaks out about 666, but that's not.
Do you know what my locker combination is at work?
Don't tell me it's
616?
616.
Well, it's-
666?
6606.
Oh.
It was an assigned locker.
Okay, so off of 666 and back into the podcast.
But it's so fun.
Anything else anybody wanted to talk about?
You're so smart. You make analogies. Oh my god, I love you.
Never do that again.
I think that this entire part right here where it's like saying that, you have to grab out, it's like, like the person, because you're left with all these choices, but you're the one that ultimately has to do it. Yeah, you have to be the one to do it and get to it. So it's like really good. I like
She's
that.
real smart too. We love her too.
That's free will.
Yeah,
We
that's
choose
smart.
to live in sin, or we can choose to do the right thing.
Grab the rope, get in the canoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you had three different kinds, like.
the
I know, that story is so funny.
The
Yeah.
thing
It cracks
is,
me up
yeah.
every time.
that happens a lot because people.
I think God's going to sweep them off in a cloud off the house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's
they
gonna
think it's
eat
just
them
going to be
away.
this big miraculous thing, and you really
It's
have
gonna
to.
be Enoch or Elijah, or they're expecting
you
something
have
like
to
that,
be-
Which
yeah.
hasn't happened since then.
right?
Yeah, you
well,
have
hasn't
to
been recorded
know.
since then, but
You have to be in the Word so that you know what's happening, so that when you pray for an answer, that you can discern when the answer comes.
and when the canoe shows up, you can go.
There's the
And
answer.
that's what I was praying for.
Yes.
I didn't know that's what I was
I'm gonna
praying
get
for.
in that canoe.
I didn't know
That's
if it
so
was going
much
to be a
smartness.
canoe or a boat or a helicopter or a life jacket, but I knew it was going to come.
Or a clouded stairway.
Clouded stairway.
A crowded stairway.
Clouded. Clouds. Like a
Clouds on the
stairway.
stairway to heaven.
A dolphin.
A dolphin.
It's a
Yeah.
dolphin. The dolphin comes up and says, "Hey, man, we're right by that."
The dolphin, I thought it was
That would
God.
be miraculous.
And she's back.
Yeah. You weren't here last week, so we had distraction-free.
It was very quiet last week. And
Discussion.
like stayed on topic.
Y'all
We're
like
so on topic.
You know what? One of the weeks that I wasn't here that I watched y'all were just as crazy as when I was here.
It's true. He said, I'm gonna fill in for Roxanne today.
And I did the best I could.
So the one week I was, the one week I wasn't here, or not the one of the weeks I wasn't here, I watched online, and like it got so crazy. At one point, somebody got up and like pulled up their shirt and was showing off their hair.
That was Jonathan.
Are we still live?
Yeah.
We get crazy
And
sometimes.
if you ever
Something, I don't remember what it was.
notice, sometimes we go like this.
Oh yeah, the kids were sick, so I was at home with the kids. That's what it was.
That means, hey,
You're
did
still
y'all
alive?
forget we're still
It's not a secret code when you tell everybody, mother.
Right.
Now everyone knows the code.
Everybody watching
Yeah,
knows
now
the
you gotta get a
code.
different
Way to
code.
go, Connie.
Just like add some peppers and
So back to the podcast.
Average, how many times it says that every week?
6
I don't know.
so far.
So far it's been like 8.
I didn't get to the end of it, so what was
So
the...
hold up.
Summary.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like towards that part. Like I got your analogies and everything, but I don't understand how it's historically the part of like God's love. Like I'm not really connecting the two.
How it's been conditioning.
Yeah, like I don't get that. Sorry, I'm real new to all that.
Are you trying to take my
Grew
shoe
up
off?
around it, and I didn't ever want to go back. Pentecostals scare me. They're scary. I thought that you went to church to die. Like literally, they would put white blankets on you. Like it was so scary.
Oh, that's when you fall down on your
Yeah,
ground?
like
Yeah,
it's
they would
true.
just
We did.
run through.
We had red and white, yeah.
We had the blankets.
Yeah, those were.
I just remember the red ones.
I've been under a blanket or two.
They would put over the ladies'
Me too, but I was using my
legs.
sleeve.
Yeah,
It's for modesty, so that people don't go looking up your dress.
Yeah.
They had to wear closed-toed shoes and dresses to their ankles anyways.
Yeah, but then you
See
fell
up
down, and so you had
Not
to...
all of them.
Oh, well,
Yeah, not all of them, not at the
She
bottom.
went... You,
no.
No.
I was what?
no, I was talking about her. And then I thought, that's just hearsay, that might not be true.
Right. So
back to the podcast.
How does it relate back and forth? Like,
I'm trying to think.
your analogies
I
compared
was
to
thinking
God's
you might-
conditional love.
Need to go back to last
Yeah,
week, talking
might need to
about
cover
God's
last
love
week's stuff,
is
yeah.
conditional.
Why did they say it was conditional?
Say
Because
what?
they're wrong.
Then why does everybody say God has unconditional love?
Well, because Christ met the conditions once
So
for
he
all.
does now.
So now there is no condition.
Oh,
The condition has been met.
Christ met the condition.
Like for instance,
Was it his death?
Yes.
for instance, you pay your rent, right? So
Sometimes.
hang on.
Bad analogy.
Theoretically, no, theoretically,
Theoretically, if your
theoretically,
rent is on the
Your
first
parents'
and you
house.
paid rent, you don't owe rent for that month. You've already paid it. That's the same way.
So you're rent free for that month.
So as long as you keep paying love towards him, he gives it back to you?
No.
No. You're never
No.
This probably wasn't the best.
Jesus
Okay,
did
so
it.
let him answer her question.
Jesus met the
It comes to your
condition
question.
once for everybody. Which in the analogy of the hurricane, is the creation of the life preserver or the rope or the Coast Guard going out. Okay? Regardless of what you do, if you're living in sin or you're rejecting God, that safety delivery service still exists. God's love still exists for you because of what Jesus did.
Right.
He took care of that once for all, regardless of your behavior.
Right.
Right. So responding to God's love is then the act of salvation. And whether you respond or not, the love now still exists for you because the conditions were already met. I'm like playing this game with Roxanne trying to
Go back and forth, I know. That's okay.
So it doesn't matter what you do at this
I
point.
have one more. I'm still listening to
Right? It doesn't matter what you do at this point because Christ already met the conditions of God's love.
This is really good.
Okay? Whether you're in salvation or out of salvation, the conditions of God's love are already met for you. So you are already loved in today's age, post-Christ. Right? Once you step into salvation, okay, now
Which
it
is
doesn't
taking
matter,
hold of the rope,
right? Taking hold of the rope.
Or getting in
now,
the canoe.
Right.
it doesn't matter if you go back and dip your toe in the waters that are sin,
Right.
because you're wearing the life preserver that's attached to the rope. Okay? That's what Paul teaches.
Yeah.
He teaches once you're saved,
Yeah.
everything is permissible. You can go back and play in the waters if you want. You've already got that life preserver on. Okay? However, he does say that grace is to then separate yourself from sin because of the rope connected to the life preserver, so that you're so far away from sin that you're not even tempted to tip your toe in.
Right.
And that's where you'll have the most fulfilling relationship with God. But anywhere on the roof, once you've put on the life preserver,
Yeah.
you're still not going to get swept away.
I can definitely understand that in my own life experiences and in my own life way, but see exactly what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense.
I can give you another similar example. Okay, the crazy,
Sorry.
the crazy guy that lives next door to us, Jesus died for him.
Right.
Okay, he chooses not to accept that,
Right.
and so even though Jesus died for him and me, you know, we're basically in God's eyes, him and I are equal.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Except I choose to believe in God
And
and accept the work that Jesus did at the cross to save me. That man chooses not to.
Right.
He chooses to be evil.
Even if you're not sinning, though, it's kind of, well, I guess not being, or not doing the word, not doing that. Is that considered sin? Like, because even if you love God or whatever, and you're not doing sin, like me, I'm not doing any kind of sins, but I don't worship or do any of the words, or you know what I mean.
So
it's like
neglect is not like I'm married to Roxanne.
Right.
Okay? If I'm neglecting my wife,
yeah.
that's not the same thing as cheating on my wife.
Right, but it's
cheating in that
still
analogy would be the sin.
Right.
Neglecting my wife is rejecting the concept of grace. Right. So by neglecting my wife and pushing her away, I'm getting closer to the temptation of then cheating, right? Then falling away, falling into sin.
Yep.
But if I embrace the idea of grace and separate myself from the cheating and get closer to my wife, then when something comes along, I'm not even tempted.
Right.
So neglect wouldn't be considered sin per se, right? It's just separating yourself away from the most fulfilling relationship you can have, and thereby putting yourself at risk of, yes, embracing sin.
Yeah.
Not losing your salvation. So once you put on that life preserver, once you have that faith in your heart, once you confess that with your mouth, it's on.
Yep.
That's what Paul teaches. And
Yeah.
he reiterates it over and over and over.
That makes sense.
But you have to accept The life preserver.
The grace.
Receive is a better word, but yeah, same concept.
Receive.
Salvation.
Put it on.
Because that's an excellent analogy. You were talking about neglecting Roxanne and everything. And I'm not.
I don't neglect Roxanne.
No,
It's a
and
good
I'm not
analogy.
trying to just harp on not being married or whatever, but using that same analogy, you and Roxanne can live together and have a great relationship and love each other, but when you haven't legally married her, you don't have the same rights, you don't have the same responsibilities.
Right.
Even though you have all that stuff, and you say, well, we have a good marriage, or we have a good relationship, and, you know, I love Roxanne, and I talk to Roxanne every day, but you don't have the same rights and responsibilities as you would. You have to seal the deal, you know what I'm saying? You have to, you can't just be a good person.
That's kind of weird as far as that. Like the marriage thing goes, because I don't know, I just have different views on it, but a lot of millennials do. As far as like getting married or not getting married, but it's kind of interesting to hear that.
Well, I was just using that because
that makes sense.
of what he was saying. There's you know, just I said that because a lot of people want to say, well, but I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a good person. Why do I need to do this or do that?
Yeah, we're all good people. It's not about that.
Being
Right.
a good
It's not about good or
person
bad.
doesn't make your relationship with Jesus.
Any
It's
better or worse,
accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior is what makes your relationship with Jesus.
Right.
Now, like I said, the hurricane, the floodwaters,
Yep.
that's not our fault. We're good people.
Right.
By and large, people are good people.
Yeah, bad
Right?
things happen to good people
But
all
sin
the time.
exists,
Yeah.
and it has to be dealt with, whether you're a good person or not.
Yep.
You are subject to, you are a victim of, and that's the reality. You were born this way. You were born a victim of a sin nature. It doesn't matter if you embraced it or didn't. What matters is, did you embrace the lifeline?
Think of sin as circumstance, and we're all born into the circumstance of sin.
Right?
There is no way to avoid it. As a human being, it is your nature. Since Adam decided to do what he did, Eve decided to do what she did, that's our nature. It's sin. And in order to get out of that sin nature, you have to climb the ladder, find the rope, find the thing to save you from that nature.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting question.
And then you want to try to hang on to that because you don't want to fall back. So you try to build your relationship with that as close as you can.
Question?
You had a question?
Yeah. We are created in God's nature, created in God's image.
Yeah.
Image.
Image.
Right. And we were created without sin. And the enemy came along and enticed Eve, and they sinned, and their nature changed.
Hey, Eve didn't, but
Their nature changed. And we now have a sin nature. So the enemy is able to change the nature of man
no,
when they're created in God's image.
no. God gave authority to man over the earth and themselves.
He gave them free
They
will.
exercised their own authority
Yeah, but they
to change their nature.
Yeah.
And Eve's not the one who sinned. Adam is.
Well, whatever.
Why?
Both of them.
Because
She ate the
the
apple,
command,
right? Or whatever.
so the command was given directly to Adam. Adam then communicated the command to Eve, right?
So it was the man's responsibility. to
So it was
keep
the
her
man's
away from it?
responsibility because he was the one that was given the command. She wasn't given the command by God. She was taking on his word that what he was saying was right. And if you go back and read it, she bit into it,
Yeah.
and then she turned and handed it to Adam.
He could have at that point
He was
said no.
standing there the whole time.
Right.
The whole time the serpent was talking, the whole time this was unfolding, Adam was standing there next to her. And instead of going, no, whoa, this is wrong, this is a lie,
Maybe
Adam just went, hey, you know what? Maybe he's right. I know God told me face to face, but yeah, maybe this guy's right.
Yeah.
Maybe Adam is distracted by his cell phone.
Maybe.
And if you go look in the New Testament, it talks about it. It talks about this was Adam's fault.
Oh, he
It wasn't
was
Eve's
distracted
fault.
by Eve.
It was Adam's fault.
They do. You said they say that where?
It's
Like in here? Is it in that same story, like that first?
Genesis.
bit?
it's in Romans.
Roman.
Yeah, in Romans, Paul says that sin entered the world through Adam. Doesn't say through Eve or Adam and Eve. It lays the blame
Well, isn't
squarely on Adam's shoulders.
Isn't that man?
You know, it says Adam.
Doesn't that
Through
mean,
one
doesn't that mean man?
through one man.
Okay,
In context,
yeah,
it's talking about Adam.
Right.
Through one man, sin entered the world.
Yeah.
Through Adam. And even if you go back and you look at it, what is this horrible sin nature? What does it exist of? It's morality. It's knowing right from wrong.
Right.
That is the thing that caused us to be imperfect, was knowing right from wrong, instead of just being innocent and not knowing there was a difference. So when someone says, oh, becoming a Christian, you'll get a better grasp of what's right and wrong, that's actually the opposite of what Christianity is for. We're trying to be innocent, separate from the idea of morality, biblically speaking.
That's why there's a big advantage of being naive about drugs.
Right?
What does that mean?
Yeah, what do you mean by
I
that?
could walk along. I mean, I don't know what, there's people trading drugs all around me. I can't even tell.
And they call them Skittles.
Can't even tell.
You're like, I want some tasty
I don't even
Where are you
want to tell.
hanging out that
I
people
don't even
are
want to
trading
tell.
drugs in front of you, man?
Yeah.
I don't even want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We need to follow you around.
where have you been doing pest control services at? That you're walking by people trading drugs.
You can walk right past it.
See,
I can't.
Because you don't know.
I've done
About it.
drugs, and I've
Just
been at a
naive.
point that even now, like now, since I've separated myself with that analogy that you use, where you separate yourself, and you've done that, blah blah, and so now it's just like, even if it was in front of me, I am so blinded by it because I just choose not to,
Yeah,
at all. But that doesn't have anything
I
to do
think
with
that's what
being
I'm talking about.
naive
That's
or
what-
not. It's just
Right.
more of you and your mind, and you're so strong-minded about it that you have chosen to not see it. You've chosen to just not even recognize.
I can see it on TV though. They're driving along in the car and they see a guy standing on the corner. That guy's doing drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you were
But
born,
when I'm
well,
driving,
no.
I don't see it.
If you were born
I
in
saw this out. I told you. I
the
saw it
jungle
this
in
afternoon.
Africa, right?
Yeah.
You would be aware of their sense of morality, what they thought was right, what they thought was wrong, right?
But they're
So you would always be a slave to morality, no matter where you were born, no matter when you were born. If you were born after Adam fell, then yeah, you'd have some sense of morality, because that's what our sin nature is. Our sin nature is being born knowing right from wrong.
like, wouldn't they have a different view of morality?
Yes.
A different set of morality, yeah.
Every
Go back
culture-
and read the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and take notice that when God says, "I'm gonna go down and look," He says, "I'm gonna go down and look because the people in Sodom and Gomorrah and around Sodom and Gomorrah have cried out to me because of the behavior of their neighbors." God didn't say they've offended my morality. He said, no. He's saying, no. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah have offended their own set of morality. And I'm going to go down and see if the outcry of the people is as bad as they have painted it out to be in their prayers.
So it kind of goes with the morality of different mindsets.
Morality changes over the years.
Yeah.
What's acceptable today
I'm gonna
wasn't
have to go back and
acceptable
read that
20
one.
years ago. What's considered a white lie now, 50 years ago was a big lie. What's considered curse words now were just common tongue 100 years ago. What morality shifts.
Like Scarlet Letter.
Or like I Love Lucy. Where they couldn't say the word pregnant on TV.
Oh, okay.
And now they're
And slept in
showing them
separate beds.
pregnant.
That was considered crude, and you were a sinner if you talked about being pregnant in public and you slept in the same bed as your
You're allowed to
husband,
feed your
and if you
babies
put that on
in public.
TV, you were smut.
Yeah.
Today,
that word.
I
it's
love that word. No.
right. Today, it's a completely different set of morality. We don't think that way at all anymore.
It's kind of like also like in a monastery, like to us, sure your boobs, you're naked. You go over there, your boobs out up. That's just normal.
Yeah.
But here, being naked topless is considered, oh, that's a sin. You're sinning. You're causing all these people to stumble.
And
You
you're
go to
getting
Africa,
taken.
they've got their, they're topless, and they're just like, hey, it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
The tribes also.
Well, every culture has its own box of
Oh,
what morality fits in.
Not a big deal.
Every
I know,
culture.
something like that.
And it doesn't matter if it's religion based, like for example, a lot of Islamic culture is based off of their religion. Now, their views of morality are completely different than, from one country to the next in the Islamic religion. Their views on morality are different, depending if it's developed or not developed. It's just like here in America. If you steal something, they call the cops. You go to jail. In Iraq, because I witnessed it firsthand, if you stole something, they cut off your finger.
Mm-hmm.
The second time you stole something, they cut off your hand.
Right.
Third time, they go for the shoulder. Yeah, which you usually end up dying.
What kind of person's so stupid? I don't have one of my hands.
Let me explain. I've literally seen a guy missing a wrist and missing his forearm on opposite hands.
So now he's just dealing with his mouth. He's just running away.
And they'll
Yeah.
take off his head.
Should have watched more
Yeah.
Aladdin. Got some lessons.
But
You gotta have a monkey.
Gotta have a monkey.
Find yourself a monkey.
and every human being is born with a sense of morality. Whether it doesn't matter what country you live in,
I mean, we do have to put the caveat that
maybe not born, but raised with a sense of morality. Hey, don't touch that fire, it's hot, it's gonna hurt you.
That's
That's
not
tall.
morality.
Yeah, that's not morality.
Or you could
Not the
grow up
second time
saying,
it's not.
hey, when you go outside, you have to have a shirt on, because if you don't, that's wrong.
Hey, if you have sex, you might get pregnant.
Yeah, but
just
you know what?
continue.
You know what?
People teach their children, right?
Okay,
Block,
what's interesting,
ignore.
interesting to me is, like, if you look at little kids, they don't mind doing something wrong. Maybe they know it's wrong, but they'll still do it.
Yeah, my daughter right
You
now.
know, it's like there's that propensity to, I don't know, to be mischievous, to do wrong things. It's not like,
My daughter will tell me. She'll tell me. She'll say, "Oh no, I knew it was wrong. I knew all this, but I thought I could get away with it. I didn't think that you would find out or you would know or anything like that." I'm like, "How many times have I caught you already, like doing this stuff?" And it's just like
Or the baby ones
over and over.
So yeah, so they
And she
have a
knows
sense
she
of
knows.
morality, but they don't have an
She
ingrained
knows
sense of
because I taught
consequence
her.
yet.
Now, a kid that was, say, born into a different type of family or lifestyle or something like that, that's being taught that maybe sin is correct, and when that would be like that would be something that where their morality is just taught incorrectly. So you're saying, like you're born into something and you are raised a certain way, and that person. If I talked to my daughter and told her that all the bad things in life were good to do, she would hear me doing that and maybe not ever know.
Well, at that point, you're just giving the same concept different names.
Right.
It's still either one side of morality or the other. You're just calling it a different name.
So in Iraq, how old do you have to be to get your finger cut off if you steal something?
Walk, be able to talk, that's about it.
But
So,
parents
so the
would
little kids know?
keep their children, but an orphan might not know.
No, they know. It's like
I mean, if you grow up seeing
They
it.
don't have as much crime. You won't do it.
Well,
No, they do. They just have a lot of people with good fingers.
you think as a little kid, you can make a mistake and
See,
get a finger cut off.
kind of like here in America, a lot of our laws and our culture is based off of the religion of Christianity. Theirs is the same way. A lot of their laws and their culture is based off of their religion. And in the Quran, that's what it says to do. Like in the Bible where it says an eye for an eye. Well, that's what they're... The Quran is really, really weird. I don't ever recommend reading that. But there's literally says you start, if he does it the first time, teach him a lesson. He does it the second time. Maybe he didn't get it the first time. The third time, they literally say off with the head. Because there is no teaching him anymore.
Yeah, they've already tried.
I'm like, 3 strikes and you're out? That don't...
Everybody knows somebody that had a finger taken off.
Yeah. But that's just the thing, it's commonplace knowledge. That, for most of us here, we grew up in a church. Like, I grew up in a church. I think you grew up in a church. I know you grew up in a church.
And most of us here grew up in a Pentecostal church.
I didn't grow up in the church.
But, we were always taught, hey, these are the 10 Commandments, these are the things you don't do.
Right.
The Quran has the same thing. It has commandments of things you just don't do. And as a kid, because their culture is so deeply steeped in their religion, you're taught that from the time you are old enough to learn till you die. You were taught. These are the things you're supposed to do and not do. So, and if you look at even most like Native American cultures, there was a set of things. These are the things you do and you don't do. So, and that's been millions of years that's been handed down.
Millions.
Yes, since Homo erectus.
These millions of thousands of years that we've been.
But what I'm saying is, every culture can trace back as far as they want their view of what morality
Just an
and
expression.
things you have to do in order to be a good person. And in order to, caveat onto that, every culture also has a different view of morality. Nobody has the same, like, my views of morality are definitely going to be different than Bill's.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Because of the things I've had to do, because of the choices I've made in my life. So,
You still have all your fingers?
yes, unfortunately. But I did a lot of dumb things, and I knew they were wrong, and I did them anyway because I wanted to. It wasn't because anybody was pushing me or anything. It was because I wanted to. Did I know a lifeline exists? Yeah. Did I think I would ever find it? No. But it was still there anyway, like you said. I still had a hold of it. Even though I was doing the dumb things, I still knew it was there. I knew what I was doing wrong. I knew how to fix it. Did I want to? No, but I did. And that's the reason I'm still alive today.
So it's that sense of morality that specifically is our sin nature. That knowledge of good and evil is how the Genesis puts it. That is morality. And so when Jesus says, be like the little kid, the innocent little kid who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong yet, those are the people that the kingdom of God are made up of. This is the concept he's talking about. Pre-complicated morality where it's just, I'm just me. I'm just being me. And until you tell me I'm not supposed to cut that guy, I don't know that cutting that guy is wrong. I'm just cutting a guy. It's fine. Think about Adam and Eve. There was nothing they could do that they'd get in trouble for. Whether we would have considered it right or wrong, the only thing they couldn't do was eat from that one tree. Anything else they wanted to do. They could kill an animal. They could, whatever. They could smoke weed. They could, whatever your imagination wants to wrap its mind around. They were innocent. They didn't know the difference between right and wrong. So it was all permissible.
So Cain and Abel didn't know that it was, wrong to murder one another?
Cain and Abel were born after the fall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, was after she ate the apple and then he ate it. Then everything after that is like you're aware. Your sense of awareness is there.
Huh?
The world with the hell.
Well, I mean, close.
Mom and dad.
Not full on, but close.
Yeah, you forgot the hand basket.
I'm sorry, I was
Is that-
thinking.
Is that
Thank you.
decaf or regular?
Decaf.
Decaf? Did I get, no, let me have some regular coffee. Do you have some?
Oh, I might have to make it. Is that cool?
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll have some too.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
We'll drink it all.
That'll warm us up.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. This thing's gonna make me cold inside.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing
I was
this for.
about to put my jacket on and go and get a drink, and then he came in.
Until I cooked it and really looked at it. Weird.
What?
It's not.
All right. So, anything else? Anything else? Anything spark anything we need to talk about?
I'm so excited for your 100th episode.
Way to go, Mr.
Roger Shea?
Anything on topic?
Hey.
Not on topic.
Well,
I caught myself.
no. I would just like to say before we wrap it up, that we could pray for our situation that we have at our house with our crazy, insane neighbor.
We need to pray for him to figure out his own salvation and pray for him to grab his own
We can
life
probably do
back.
that after we turn off the camera.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to
Yeah.
throw it out there, you know.
Yeah, we can make time to do that before we. All right. So I only have one note in my whole thing. So all this talking, and I've only got one note. And I haven't even talked about the note yet. So it's specifically about the nature of God. So I have had discussions where people have asked me, you know, if God exists and if God is love, then what kind of cruel, evil God would see man fall and put all of mankind through all of this crap and not just snap his fingers and make everything right? Isn't he all powerful? Isn't that what the church teaches? God can do anything. God's all powerful.
Right.
Right? But I mean, if you go back and you read it, God limits himself. That's the general theme of the book of Genesis. Is God limiting his own abilities. The moment that he created something, he limited his ability. And the reason is because we know that God creates via his own word. And we also know that God's not a man, so he can't lie. He can't break his own word. So if he gives his word and creates something, that something has to follow its given course through to the end. And if he stops that course, then he's not God anymore. He's violated his own word.
Didn't he do that with the flood, though?
Nope. He gave mankind authority. And when he went to Noah and said, "Hey, Noah, I've got this plan to kill everybody," Noah went, "Sounds good to me." He gave his seal of approval.
Since I'm the one that's going
Right?
to get saved.
He got the approval of the only righteous person he could find on the earth. And that person gave him approval to wipe out everything else on the earth. Noah acted on his authority as a human being and said, "Sounds good. Bring on the rain."
And the little imps did. Oh wait, that was the movie. I'm sorry.
But every time God moves in the Bible, every time God moves, you can find a human giving him permission.
That is pretty interesting.
And it goes back to, in Genesis, God gave dominion over the earth to mankind and dominion over mankind to mankind. He limited his own power.
So,
Cannot move on the earth without the permission of mankind.
So when he sent Joshua and the Israelites into the promised land, whose permission did God get then?
That was a promise that he made to Abraham.
And the Israelites and Abraham and
Thank you so much.
everyone that was complicit following back to the beginning of the plan.
But they gave him permission? I thought it was God telling them, you need to do this.
So
But they did it.
there's this submission and master relationship going on where God says, hey, I'm God, I want to bless you, and the Israelites go, awesome, we give you our authority, tell us what to do. So then when God says, okay, now you need to go do this, well, he can only do that legally because they've already said, cool, you're God, tell us what to do. We give you our authority. If they had
I don't know, are
rejected
you sure
him,
that's the right
Kind of like
word?
accepting God as your savior. Is that the same kind of what you're like? Hey, tell me what to do. Is that kind of like the same thing?
similar. You're
Okay.
giving him authority over your heart, over
Right.
your life, over you.
Yeah.
With-
In alignment. You know?
With the Israelites and Joshua, that was a promise from God to Abraham that I have a land for your descendants to
Yeah.
live in.
Right.
So when it came time, he was like, hey, you, I want you to lead these people to here, but it's not going to be easy. So Moses started it, and then Moses passes on, and
Yeah, it
Joshua
wasn't like
takes it
3
up.
people or something.
And so when God was taking them to the promised land, it was to fulfill the promise that he made to Abraham. That I will make your descendants as numerous as the
Did you think
Stars
he was
in the
going to do it
sky
right then, or maybe a couple
Of
days
which
later?
Abraham was complicit in the plan, Isaac was complicit in the plan,
Yeah.
Jake. All these people were giving God permission to move on the earth to set this in motion.
Right.
If Abraham had said, no, that's cool, we're good, Abraham for probably another 430 years would have been going, hey, I'm looking for another righteous person who'll give me permission to move in the earth.
Hey, where'd that canoe go?
Anybody, any takers, anybody with a faithful heart, anybody. Because he's not a man that he should lie, and he gave his word. And if he breaks any of his word, then none of his word is good, and he created the universe with his word, so at that point the universe would just blink out of existence? So snapping his fingers to reverse Adam's decision would literally just wipe all of humanity and all of creation out of existence.
turning off the lights.
Like turning off the lights.
The kids are cute. You didn't hear them from over there.
It's an interesting concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look, every time God moves in the Bible,
Yeah,
He's
I'm
got
gonna have
permission.
To, I'm gonna have to go back.
he's
and
got
try and
human
think
permission
about
to
it.
move.
I gotta check that out
Yeah,
too.
because I've read the Bible a couple times and I don't know. I'm trying to think of every scenario.
That is, after he gave Adam and Eve dominion.
Right.
Obviously, before that, he didn't have humans permission to create the universe.
Where did Noah get permission?
When
did
God
Noah?
told him what he was planning, and Noah didn't say no.
Genesis 6. Just because he didn't say no, that was
Yeah,
permission.
that was when Noah then became complicit and started building. That was giving God permission. Noah was complicit. He said, "Cool, I'm on board with the plan. Let's do it."
But God told him what he was going to do.
God told him he had a plan.
Right.
Right.
And
And then Noah was complicit, so God was able to follow through.
God told him his plan.
Noah knew he had to be complicit. He didn't-
Doesn't matter if
what
Noah
choice
knew.
did he have?
Well,
Doesn't matter if
no,
Noah
he
knew.
could have died in the flood. I mean, he could have
he
chosen
chose
not
to
to
do
build
what God
the
told him
boat.
to do.
Well, if he told God no, then God wouldn't have been able to flood the earth.
Until he found another
Because
guy.
the earth, until he found another faithful heart. Because the earth belongs to humanity. When we screw up the earth, like we're doing,
Yeah.
God's not going to step in and save the day. We are responsible for what you see out here. We're responsible for the crime rate. We're responsible for the degeneration. We're responsible for the breakdown of soil. We're responsible for the oceans, whatever the oceans are doing.
Yeah.
That's human beings' responsibility. We did that. God's not slowly molding the earth into some new apocalyptic paradise. We're doing that.
Thank you.
From my perspective.
Apocalyptic paradise?
That sounds fun. I like that.
Yeah, that's kind of an
That's what I'm
oxymoron.
saying.
Apocalyptic paradise.
We're the ones that are doing that. We're the ones that own the earth.
Fuck Sam right off the plant.
So,
Yes, please, decaf. Thank you. And more cream, please.
oh, there's that cold air again. Harness was kicked on.
Yep. You got for the coffee.
Yeah.
Did you know that if you go back to Genesis, what is it, chapter 2, where it says all the herbs of the field are for your consumption? If you go back to the original Hebrew, that word is coffee bean.
Pretty sure that's a joke.
I did
You
have
caught it.
something else.
It's probably bitter leaves is what
That was bitter leaves.
That was in the podcast, but it doesn't really have anything to do with this. But you were talking about people have accused you of being universalist. What is that?
A universalist believes.
Hold on a second. Is that the Unitarian universal thing?
No, they're not.
Universalists believe that when Jesus died, that did away with hell, and that everyone from the point of Jesus' death and resurrection until the end of time, that will all go to heaven.
No matter what?
No matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what.
C.S. Lewis was a universalist, but he specifically believed that not that hell was done away with. He's a very imaginative person. He imagined that there would still be a bema, he believed the scriptures would follow through, but that the people that went to hell, that every 6 months to 6 years or so, they'd all get on a bus, for lack of a better term, and ride up into heaven and spend a little bit of time in heaven, and then they'd have to go back down to hell, and this would continue in
Spurts?
Yeah, in spurts, and the time in hell would get less and less and less and less while they dealt with their evil nature and were able to then actually live in heaven.
It sounds like purgatory.
But
That's what he thought it is, yes.
You know, you
the
get your
Bible
yard
directly
time.
says that there's a chasm that can't be crossed.
Not by the people that are there, but
That's a-
like I said, C.S. Lewis was a very inventive, imaginative
Have an uncanny
person.
ability to make things
Okay,
up.
I just got hung up on the. He's not
Not
that.
a universalist.
Not.
Not.
I was like, I don't know if that's what
No. No, but I was thinking.
No, you have
I've
to
heard you called.
respond to salvation.
I've heard you called a lot of things. That wasn't one of them.
Well, when I say things like, well, God's love is conditional and Christ met those conditions, just their heads explode of people who believe that God hates sinners. And they're just like, you're just a universalist. You just think everybody's going to heaven and you're wrong because of this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I was like, I'm a universalist, first off. And second off, most of the scriptures you just quoted, you misquoted. That's not what any of them say.
they
Is
say
that
in
when
their
you
own
start
words.
blocking people?
What?
Is that when you start blocking people?
That's when I start blocking people.
That's what you should.
When they start saying, you're a heretic and you're preaching false doctrine, that's when I just go, block.
Some people don't though. Some people like to fight back. I shouldn't have spurred him on, but I had to.
When you said you have to answer to salvation, what did you mean by that? Can you?
You have to grab that lifeline. You have to
Right.
put on that. You have to.
But
Either
if you
accept
don't,
it.
if you don't that one time, or maybe even it was like how that guy ended up doing it like 3 times, he's just like, no. Like if you don't do it, then what? Then that's just when like you die, I guess. Like if you don't answer the salvation.
Well, if you never have that experience where you believe in your heart and you confess with your mouth, then yeah, you don't have salvation. And at the end, when Christ is judging everyone's lives, whether you lived a good life or a bad life, and you get rewards or you don't,
Right.
and then separates the sheep from the goats, and the goats go to hell, you're going to be with the goats.
You've never.
That's the only real issue at hand is did you respond to God's love, and receive salvation,
Right.
or not? Did it stop recording or what
No,
happened?
it's not recording, it's just low battery.
Yeah.
10%.
Low battery. I figured it would. I was at 40% when I started.
Yeah.
The Bible calls it being born again.
Huh?
The Bible calls it being born again.
That's what he's talking about, right? Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but I've done that, but like I don't know, my boyfriend's not. That is like a subject that we don't ever talk about. Like,
Well, it's difficult.
Well, maybe you should.
Yeah. No, we have. It's just not a. It's just like I kind of see it as like one of these days. As long as I keep going down my path, and sometimes like it'll actually happen, and like I'm at the store or something, and he's sitting there getting the Mormons are knocking on the door, and he's in a conversation about this. He's that guy. But when you make a good point and he understands it, then he's like, okay, maybe, you know what, maybe you're, and he'll keep his mouth shut, but it's just kind of funny. So I figure over time, he'll get it and kind of be, but.
You're the best person to live that life in front of him, though.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what I say. Like that's how I see it. That's how I say it. And he'd like coming here and stuff. If I continue to come, I know he'll be like, "Ooh, I wonder what's going on there."
At the very least, you can be like, "Hey man, they don't charge for dinner."
Yeah, it's free dinner.
Mexican dinner.
I know how to make him listen. So what I do is I just act like it's. Well, you're gonna have fun anyways. I don't even want to invite you.
And he's like, I'll show you.
Yeah, he'll do that next time. Maybe not the second time, maybe the third time. Then he sees it serious and he's like, okay. Because I'm like, well, I'm not going to invite you to church. You hate going. Why am I going to invite you to that? But this
is this like any church you've ever been to?
I know this right here is different, but that's how I've done it in the past.
Yeah.
And then he'll like if it's a like Gateway, I went to Gateway, he would never even walk in there. He'd drive us there. I got him to drive us there a couple times.
Yeah, don't call it church. Don't call it church.
I call it fellowship. I said fellowship thingy. That's what I said.
Yeah.
So and he was like, well, is it inside or outside? I'm like. I haven't even responded back or anything. I'll just be like, we had so much fun. It was so much fun. And he'll end up running.
Can't put enough exclamation points.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where that lifeline, that's why I asked about that lifeline, because it's like, when he sees me and I tell him back all the bad stuff I've done, and everything, but when I grab lifeline with me, and he has to a certain extent, but not accepting or voicing. There's no voicing it, like out there just yet. So one day he'll get there. But I can't push him. I can't make him do it. Like that's something that he has to do on his own and learn on his own.
Yeah.
So.
The music's really loud.
Let's be praying with the wooing of the Spirit.
I know, I do. I actually do that all the time. I pray all the time for that because, like, I know that if I keep praying for him, it'll keep happening, and that's when something else will happen. Or I'm pretty sure, like Uncle Brian being around.
The Holy Spirit has to prepare his heart for it.
Yeah.
To receive it.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's. Yeah. I don't know how to make that happen, but
You can't make that happen.
I know, but I'm
And
impatient.
trying to force the issue,
I can't.
all you'll do is create a false believer.
Yeah.
All you'll create somebody that doesn't believe in their heart,
Right.
that is showing up and going, man, I wish I wasn't here. I wish I was watching the game instead.
Right.
Why am I here? Why am I talking to these people? Why am I doing any of that?
Yeah. I took a picture of this though and sent it to him. It's a lot different. I like the difference of kind of like how the church believes of how the Lord compared. It's they just gotta explain, the New Testament in ways that are relatable. Like I hate that. I get so
The problem is that the New Testament is written in Greek.
Yeah.
And Greek is not a very relatable language to translate.
Right.
It's only relatable if you speak it. And then when you try to translate it, then it gets really complicated because we use one word like the word anger. We have the word anger. And
Right.
and we apply inflection to know, hey, do you need to go outside? You get really animated here.
The preacher done called you from the front row.
Good Lord.
this car over.
So we say the word anger, and we have inflection to let us know what we mean by anger, right? And then you go to the New Testament and you read, be angry but sin not, and don't let the sun go down when you're angry, because you don't want to give place to the devil. And then 3 verses later, you read, put away all your anger and your covetousness, and you're like, dude, I'm way confused because you just said I could be angry as long as I didn't sin. And a few verses later, you were like, no, don't be angry. Except it's 2 different Greek words.
Yeah.
That in English we translate as the same word anger, but it's 2 different things.
Yeah.
It gets really confusing.
It is loud. Yeah, it's very loud. Yeah, so that's definitely, it's better to be around, like, you know, hearing it from someone who's just not relating to like exactly what it says. 'Cause I had a Bible like that too. I had like 6 different ones. It doesn't matter which one you get of how they do it, like, or how they reword it in your own words. It's like, in order to, like the analogy you used.
Yeah. So I have a Bible that you can try and see if you like it.
It's new, it's got a new
It just came out last year.
Okay.
You're still gonna have some issues where.
Bill, it's Bill's favorite. It's the newer translation. It seems to work out better.
You're still gonna have some of those issues where you're like, I still don't quite get it, but it's a really good translation for ease of reading.
Yes, it's called the Christian Standard Bible.
Okay.
Is it close to the American Standard?
No.
No?
Because that's how like we speak now. Completely.
It came out last year, but they've been making it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like it's a 20-year project that just finished last year.
Wow.
So far, Bill's not found any bad translations except one, right?
2 places I found where, and I contacted the publishers and they were like, well, you know, we had a lot of people working on this and da-da-da-da. So.
That's not bad. So out of the whole thing you went or so far you went?
So far.
And where are you at now? Right now?
Well, I haven't read it verse by verse. I just as I'm doing these and studying through.
Yeah.
So like, there's a place where Paul is.
Just like kind of checking it back.
Yeah. So there's a place in the New Testament where Paul is quoting the Old Testament, and in the New Testament they translated the word to mean one thing, and in the Old Testament they translated it to mean something completely opposite. In that version, and I was like, guys, it can't be both ways.
Right.
You can't have Paul quoting this verse and he quotes it opposite of what it says in the Old Testament.
There's a Bible app for your phone.
Oh, yeah, I've had those.
It has CSB, and it'll talk to you. It'll read it out loud.
I don't. Anytime I've ever had the Bible on my phone, it's just like I feel like whenever I'm doing that, I want to be writing also, and just kind of. No, I know I have that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're more of a tactile and less digital person.
I'm a really big digital person. Me and my boyfriend and Vanna, even my daughter.
But when you're studying anything,
Yes.
you're tactile.
I'm very books.
Pen and paper, book.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to be able to highlight. I want to be able to really, so that way if I go back, like I have 3 colors. If it's red, then that's like important, and then if it's yellow, it means I have no idea what that means. And then green's like good, but it kind of, he's related to me or something.
And this is the guy to tell you what it means when it's in yellow.
Yeah. See, that's
I can try.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not just gonna put a stamp on myself and go, I understand all of it. I don't know. I've got 7 commentaries that I consult on different verses, and so
That's good though.
I'm not a man into my, I like 7 different people that I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean?